Hello everyone, today we're going to do a brake fluid change on the solid rocket. Let's get straight into it.
So I'm going to start off by protecting the paint with some old t-shirts, or a very oversized t-shirt in this case, and a magnetic tray on top to hold it in place. I'm going to give the reservoir a bit of a clean before I open it, although it's already pretty clean to be fair. Now, although this is a British bike, and this particular one was still made in the UK rather than Thailand, the braking system is made by a Japanese company, Nissan in this case, so all the screws they use are JIS, Japanese Industrial Standard. If you want to confirm that, you can look on top of the bolt and you can see a little dot, and that's the marker for it being a JIS screw. So ideally you should use a JIS screwdriver for it, unless you want to strip them. And here we go, this one's coming apart nicely. There's the cap off, and the plastic insert. And now it's time to peel off the rubber diaphragm, which is still in good condition. And look at that fluid, still looks brand new. The last time it's been replaced is about 5 years ago from memory, but it's always been kept inside, and barely ridden to be fair. So I'm just gonna give the reservoir a wipe to take away any brake fluid that might be attacking the paint. And now I'm using a syringe to empty the reservoir of all the old fluid. So here I've got a new and sealed container of .4 brake fluid. It's always a good idea to use brake fluid from a sealed container, as it's hygroscopic and might absorb some moisture otherwise. And now I'm pouring it into the reservoir, making sure I don't spill any. Quick tip here, if you look in the middle of the reservoir, there's a little port down there, because if you squeeze the lever a bit too hard, it's going to shoot a jet of brake fluid, probably on your painted parts or wherever you don't want it to be. On some bikes it's worse than others. Some bikes have a little cover over it to prevent that, but in this case there's nothing, so I'm just going to pop the white insert back on to keep any jets of brake fluid in the reservoir. Removing the rubber dust cap on the right hand side caliper, put a little spanner on it, 8mm in this case, and just break it loose to make sure it's all free and nothing seized. And now I'm just using a little reservoir with a hose to collect all the old brake fluid and hopefully avoid making a mess. And if you look closely you can see the brake fluid running through the clear hose, but it looks very clean. It's not dark and dirty like you would expect after all that time. And make sure you don't run the reservoir dry. It might involve a lot more bleeding otherwise, so I'm just going to run a couple of reservoirs through each caliper and that's enough. It's already very clean. Right, once I'm happy with it, I'm just going to carefully remove the container. Double check the nipple is tight. Give it a quick wipe and put the dust cap back on. I didn't spill anything, so it doesn't need any extra cleaning. And now onto the other side. Pop the dust cap off. Check it's not seized. And now start bleeding it. Same as on the other side. I just have to stretch a bit more to reach the spanner and the lever at the same time. But it's not too bad. And I'm all done. I'm just double checking the nipple is tight and carefully take the hose off. And somehow I managed not to spill any again. That doesn't usually happen. Give it a wipe, put the rubber cap back on, and we're done here. I'll top up the reservoir to the correct level. And there's the side glass. And once I'm happy with that, I can close it back up. I've cleaned all my bits, so here's the diaphragm going in, the plastic insert, and now the cap and the bolts. I just gradually drive the bolts in so the cap goes down nice and even, compressing the diaphragm uniformly. And now I'm just spraying it with brake cleaner and giving it a wipe. Again, it's not the way I usually do things, but this time I managed not to spill anything. Still, it's a good idea to be safe and give it a good clean. So to get to the back brake, I need to remove that cover over the master cylinder and the side case. For anyone that's wondering, this bike does not have a hydraulic clutch, it's cable operated, so we don't have to do anything there. And here we go, this cover is just held on by 2 bolts. The side case has quite a few bolts inside. I'm going to try and speed things up with an impact driver, but this might end in tears. From memory, one of the bolts isn't very good. And there it is. That's actually my fault. About 5 years ago when I did this job, I knew that bolt was a little bit dodgy, but I didn't have a replacement, so I just put it back in. Now it came back to bite me. And it bit me pretty hard. Nothing I tried worked. I had to become quite aggressive with it in the end. The fact that this is the only bolt that has a nut on the other side, which I completely forgot about, didn't help either. So I had to Dremel a slot in the head of the bolt, which made a mess in the side case, and eventually I got it out, after I took the nut off as well. And it's finally coming off. This bit took longer than the whole brake job. And here we go. Now we've got good access to the rear caliper. So I'm just going to wipe the dust off the reservoir before I open it. And this uses Japanese industrial standard screws again. And all the bits go nicely in the tray, including the interesting floaty bit, which I'm not sure what it's for. Maybe just to help you see the level better. I'm breathing pretty hard. I'm probably still angry with that bolt. And same as before, I'm going to use a syringe to take out all the old brake fluid. Or you could just run it through the system since it's pretty clean. Fill it back up with fresh fluid. Dust cap off the bleed nipple. Give it a bit of a clean. Break it loose to make sure it's not seized or anything. And put the easy bleed on it. And we're ready to go. If you look closely at the clear hose, you can see the brake fluid running through it. And don't forget to keep the reservoir topped up. And that's the second one getting flushed through. And now just top it up to the correct level and I can put the cap back on. Floaty thing first. Diaphragm. Plastic insert. And now the cap and the screws. And we're done here. Just give it a clean to make sure there's no brake fluid residue left. And I can put the shiny chrome cover back on. The bolts on this are a little bit difficult to access, because I can't get a socket in there because of the floorboard. And the ratchet spanner I'm using, I can only drive it in most of the way, but I don't think I can tighten it because the engagement isn't quite enough. So the best thing to use to tighten it is an aviation spanner. The normal combination spanner just doesn't quite fit the same, doesn't go in there as much, but the aviation spanner fits in perfectly. And now give it a good wipe, of course, make it shiny. Just double check the nipple is tight and remove the bottle. Give it a bit of a clean and put the dust cap back on. And we're done with the job. I'm quite happy with how cleanly it all went. But since it's up on the lift, I can see quite a few areas that I haven't cleaned properly in the past. So it's a good time to give it a polish. And time for the side case to go back in. Tighten all the bolts. I did put a new one in this time. And the pesky lock nut. Now I'm just trying to clean the mess I've made. and give it a good wipe. And we're done here. I can drop it down and take it off the lift. That's going to be a challenge.
And that's it. We're done here. Thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful for you, and I hope to see you again next time. God bless.